It was supposed to be a simple ritual, helping Will confront his past, find peace. But the moment he stared into that mirror, everything changed. What we thought was a path to healing became a doorway to something far darker, something that had been trapped for centuries, waiting for release. And when it broke free, it didn't just threaten Will's life, it threatened mine too. And now, I can never speak of what happened. Before the mirror arrived, he'd hired me as his spiritual coach to help him navigate the chaos of fame and figure out how to stay grounded in a world that constantly demanded more from him. Fame was suffocating, and Will needed to find a way to reconnect with something real, something outside of his public persona. When we first met, he was full of questions. How do I deal with the pressure? How do I not lose myself? He seemed lost, not in a bad way, but in a way that I could relate to. Someone caught in the rush of life, constantly expected to perform, to give, to be something. I was there to help him. That was my job. But nothing could have prepared me for what would happen when he brought in that mirror. It didn't seem like anything special at first. Will had picked it up from an antique dealer, or so he said. Just an old mirror with a wooden frame that looked as though it came from another time. There was no sense of grandeur about it, but there was something about the way Will looked at it, the way he carried it in, as if it was more than just a decoration. It felt almost sacred to him, as though he was holding something that would unlock the next phase of his life. He set it up in the middle of the room. He stood in front of it, staring at his reflection for a long time, and for a moment, I thought he was just admiring it. But then he turned to me, and I saw it in his eyes. There was something else going on behind that calm exterior, a strange urgency. I think it's time, he said, his voice steady, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. I need to see what's been holding me back. I need to see my true self. I'm ready to face it. The idea was simple. We were going to perform a spiritual ritual, one that involved looking into the mirror and confronting the past. Mirrors have always been seen as portals to the soul, a way to unlock hidden truths, and Will was desperate to know what was lying beneath his surface. I'd done this sort of thing before with other clients. I knew the drill: deep breathing, quieting the mind, and using the mirror as a tool for introspection. But something was off from the start. I had Will sit in front of the mirror, his eyes fixed on his own reflection. As he closed his eyes, I began guiding him through the ritual, instructing him to focus on his breath, to let go of the distractions that cluttered his mind. As the room grew still, I felt a shift in the air, something subtle but unmistakable. It was as if the space had thickened, like the atmosphere was pressing down on me. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the usual tension that came with these sessions. But then, as Will continued to breathe deeply, his body relaxed, and his gaze fixed on the mirror, I saw it. A figure. It was barely there at first, just a shadow, a flicker of movement in the glass. But then, it became clearer. The face was dark, ancient-looking, with deep-set eyes and a stern expression. It didn't look like Will at all. In fact, it didn't look like anyone I recognized. I was about to say something, but I stopped myself. Was it just a trick of the light? Had I been staring at the mirror too long? But no. The figure was real. It was there. I felt it. I tried to stay calm. I reminded myself that it could be a manifestation of something deep within Will's subconscious. The mirror was supposed to reflect the truth, after all, but this wasn't a normal reflection. The figure didn't belong to Will. It wasn't part of his journey. I glanced at Will. His eyes were still closed, his face calm. He didn't seem to notice the shadow moving behind him. It wasn't even just a shadow anymore. It was becoming more defined, taking shape, a figure that seemed to be watching us. I could feel a coldness creeping into the room, and I shuddered. Something about it felt wrong. I could feel the presence in the mirror, like an energy pulling at me, tugging at the edges of my thoughts. I had seen my share of odd experiences in my work, but nothing like this. This wasn't just some fleeting vision. This was something. "Will," I said, my voice breaking the silence, "you need to stop. Open your eyes." Will didn't respond. His breathing had slowed, and his body seemed almost rigid, as though he were no longer fully present. I moved closer to him, trying to get his attention, but there was no reaction. It was as if he was in a trance. My heart began to race. Something was wrong. And it wasn't just the figure in the mirror. It was Will himself. He wasn't there anymore. I reached out, gently shaking his shoulder. Finally, his eyes fluttered open. They were wide, but there was something distant in them. He blinked, as if coming out of a fog, and looked at the mirror. The figure was gone, but I wasn't sure if that was a relief. Whatever had been in that mirror had felt too real, too powerful. And I wasn't sure I wanted to know what it was. "Did you see it?" I asked. Will looked at me, a confused expression on his face. "See what?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. The figure had disappeared, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed us from the mirror. Something that had been waiting there for a long time. And now it was awake. The session ended quietly. Will didn't seem to notice the unease in the air, and I didn't press the matter further. But I knew that something was wrong, that the mirror wasn't just a tool for self-reflection. It was something much darker, something I didn't fully understand yet, but I would. But this wasn't just the beginning. What I didn't know then was that the figure we'd seen in the mirror was only the start of a much darker journey. The days that followed that first session were a blur. I couldn't shake the unease that had settled over me. Will seemed unaffected, as though nothing had happened. But I could feel the weight of the mirror's presence in the room, pressing on me every time I entered. It was as if the mirror had become a silent witness to something I wasn't meant to see, a window into a world I was better off ignoring. But I couldn't. Will, however, was determined. He was more focused than I'd ever seen him. He wanted to push forward. He wanted to dig deeper. He told me he was ready to confront his past, to find out what had been haunting him, what had been holding him back from moving forward in his life. He was looking for clarity, peace, even redemption. It was a noble goal, but something in me was screaming to stop. Don't do it. Every fiber of my being told me we weren't ready for whatever the mirror might show us. But I couldn't back out. Will trusted me. I trusted him. So, we began again. I set up the room, lighting candles and incense to set the mood, to create a calming atmosphere that might shield us from whatever was lurking in the mirror. It felt like a ritual, and in some ways, it was. But I could sense that this wasn't going to be like any other session. I could feel the pull of something unseen, a force that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. Will sat down in front of the mirror once again. I could see the tension in his shoulders, his deep breaths as he prepared himself for whatever revelation lay ahead. His eyes locked onto his own reflection as I guided him through the meditation. "Focus on your breath," I said softly. "Let your thoughts drift away and look into the mirror. Let the reflection show you what's hidden. Let it reveal your true self." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty that quickly vanished beneath a veil of determination. Will was always one to tackle challenges head-on, to face his fears without hesitation. But what he didn't know was that this wasn't just a challenge he could overcome by sheer willpower. As Will breathed deeply, the room began to grow colder. I noticed the temperature drop immediately, the air thick with something that wasn't quite right. My breath became visible in front of me. I tried to dismiss it, to focus on Will, but the feeling only intensified. The moment he began to fall deeper into the meditation, that's when it happened again. A shadow. It appeared at the edge of the mirror's frame. At first, it was just a flicker, a shadow that shifted and swayed in the corner of my vision. But then, like a cloud of smoke, it grew larger, more defined. And then, there it was, the same figure. It wasn't the same as before. This time, the figure was clearer, closer. I could make out the features of the face, the deep-set eyes that seemed to stare into my soul. The figure was taller, imposing. It was as though the mirror had pulled him from the past. And now, he was standing right there between us. His presence was suffocating. Will didn't seem to notice, his face still relaxed in a trance-like state. But I saw it. I felt it. It was like the air itself had turned to ice. The figure in the mirror seemed to smile, a twisted, malicious smile that chilled me to the bone. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I was paralyzed by its gaze, by the cold dread that seemed to flood the room. I thought for a second that maybe this was just part of the ritual, some deep psychological manifestation of Will's own mind. But I knew better. The feeling was wrong. It wasn't coming from Will. It was coming from the mirror. I stepped back, trying to breathe. What was it? Who was this? I had to snap Will out of this. I knew it had to be the ancestor, the one I'd read about in the family history. But I couldn't prove it. I couldn't be sure. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to speak. "Will," I said, my voice tight. "Will, open your eyes." Nothing. His body remained still, his breath even, as if he were lost in the trance. I walked over to him, my pulse racing. My hand hovered over his shoulder, unsure whether to touch him, but I had to. I shook him gently. "Will," I repeated, my voice more forceful this time. "Wake up. Now." His eyes snapped open, wide and unblinking. But they weren't the eyes of the man I knew. They were empty, hollow. For a moment, I thought I saw something dark in them, something that didn't belong, something that wasn't Will. "What do you see?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He blinked, slowly. "I see myself." It was as if the question had broken through the trance. But he wasn't really seeing what I was seeing. I could tell. He looked at the mirror, confused, but there was no recognition in his face. I turned my attention back to the reflection. The figure was still there, standing like a sentinel in the background, eyes fixed on me. Its expression had changed. No longer a smile, but a quiet, almost satisfied look. This time, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed Will's arm and pulled him up from the chair, forcing him away from the mirror. The figure followed us, as if it were trying to move with us, to stretch its hold further. I could feel it. I could feel the presence pressing against me, as if it were reaching out, trying to take hold. "Will, listen to me," I said urgently. "We need to stop. Now!" But Will wasn't listening. His gaze was locked on the mirror, and his body was rigid. Something wasn't right. I could feel him slipping away from me, from this world. I knew then, as I stared at his blank expression, that the figure in the mirror wasn't just watching us. It was pulling us in, inch by inch. But this wasn't just a haunting. This wasn't just a ghost from the past. The ancestor wasn't waiting to be seen. He was waiting to take over. It wasn't just the mirror anymore. It was something deeper, something more sinister that I couldn't fully understand. After that second session, I couldn't stop thinking about the figure, the ancestor, who had appeared in the reflection. It wasn't just a shadow. It wasn't just a vision of Will's subconscious. This was real, and it was getting stronger with every passing day. But I couldn't explain it to Will. Not yet. He was too consumed with the idea of confronting his past, of finding answers to questions he didn't fully understand. I tried to push my worries aside, focusing instead on helping him. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Something was watching us. And it wasn't Will's reflection staring back from the mirror. It was something that had been trapped for far too long. I decided I needed to dig deeper into the mirror's history. There had to be a reason why this particular object was pulling at us. Something wasn't adding up. Will might have thought it was a path to self-discovery, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this mirror wasn't about healing. It was about control. I started with the antiques dealer Will had gotten it from. I went to their shop, a dusty little store on a quiet street. The man who ran the place was older, with thick glasses and a nervous energy about him. When I asked him about the mirror, his expression faltered. "You're sure you want to know about that one?" he asked, almost hesitant. I nodded. "It's important. I need to know what I'm dealing with." He sighed, leaning forward. "That mirror is old. Very old. And I've heard rumors about it for years. People say it was part of a curse, a ritual of some kind." I leaned in closer. "A curse?" He glanced around nervously, then lowered his voice. "It belonged to a family, a very old family. Their name was Smith, long before your will, I'd imagine. But the stories aren't pretty. They say the head of the family, his ancestor, was a man who got caught up in things he shouldn't have. Rituals, forbidden practices. And, well, when things didn't go as planned, the ancestor was bound to the mirror. They say his spirit has been trapped inside for centuries." I didn't believe him at first. People were always quick to jump to conclusions, to weave elaborate tales about the past. But the more he spoke, the more I began to feel a chill creeping into my spine. I asked the dealer for more details about the ritual. He couldn't give me much. Most of it was lost to time, But there was one thing he said that stuck with me. The mirror doesn't just reflect, it captures. It holds pieces of those who look into it, pieces of their souls. I left the shop, my mind racing. It made sense now. The ancestor wasn't just trapped in the mirror physically. He was bound to it, and the mirror was like a prison, holding his spirit in place. But something had shifted. The mirror wasn't just reflecting Will's past. It was pulling him into the ancestor's world. The deeper Will went into the mirror's influence, the stronger the ancestor became. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Will, telling him I needed time to research more before we continued the sessions. He wasn't happy about it, but he respected my need to understand more. And truth be told, I needed the space. Every time I looked at the mirror, I felt the presence of the ancestor behind me, waiting, watching. I began researching Will's family tree. The more I dug, the more I discovered unsettling details. The Smith family had been prominent in their community for centuries, but there were rumors of strange behavior, of an obsession with power and control. Will's ancestor, the one in the mirror, had been known for his dealings with dark forces. His name was Elias Smith, a wealthy, influential man in his time, but with a reputation for dabbling in forbidden occult practices. It was said that he had been trying to communicate with spirits, using the mirror as a way to open a portal to the other side. The ritual he performed was meant to bring him knowledge, but instead, it brought him a curse. The ritual went wrong, and Elias was bound to the mirror, his spirit trapped inside, forced to watch as generations of his descendants tried and failed to escape the curse. The more I read about Elias, the more I understood the danger we were in. This wasn't just a mirror. It was a prison, an anchor that kept his spirit tethered to the mortal world. And it was clear that Elias was angry, resentful, and hungry. He had waited too long for someone to free him. And now, he was using Will to do just that. By the time I finally gathered the courage to tell Will what I had learned, the ancestor's influence had already begun to take hold of him. Will wasn't just acting strangely anymore. He was different, more distant, less himself. He began spending more time in front of the mirror, obsessing over it as if it were the only thing that mattered. The man I had been helping was slipping away, and in his place, something darker was emerging. I had to act fast. I couldn't let Will fall victim to this curse, but the more I tried to pull him away from the mirror, the more resistant he became. It was as if the mirror had claimed him, drawn him into its grasp. And Elias was waking up. I remember one night, after a particularly intense session, I walked into the room to find Will standing in front of the mirror, staring at his own reflection. His eyes were wide, glazed over, like he wasn't really there. "Will," I said, my voice low but firm, "you need to stop. This isn't healthy. This mirror is..." He cut me off, his voice cold and distant. "I'm not done yet. I need to see the truth." The look in his eyes, it wasn't Will's anymore. It was as if Elias was looking through him, using his body as a vessel to speak. "The truth?" I asked, my heart pounding. "What truth?" "The truth," he repeated, his voice deeper now, "is that I was meant for greatness, not you, not any of them, only me." That was the moment I realized that the ancestor was no longer just influencing Will. He was taking over. And Will? Will was becoming a shell of himself, a body for Elias's spirit to inhabit. The mirror was no longer just a tool. It was a gateway, I stepped back, fear gnawing at my insides. I had to stop this. But how? I was trapped in this web of fate, unable to break free. I needed help, but who could help me with something like this? But the worst part wasn't what Elias had done to Will. It was what he was planning to do next. And if I didn't stop it, the curse would spread beyond us all. I knew the moment I stepped into the room that things had gotten worse. Will was sitting in front of the mirror again, his gaze locked onto his reflection. But this time, something had shifted in him. There was a coldness in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. The warmth, the fire that had once driven him was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness that sent a chill down my spine. I had to force myself to stay calm. I couldn't panic. Not yet. Will was still alive, still himself, wasn't he? Or was he? My mind raced, but I took a deep breath and approached him slowly, my footsteps almost silent on the wooden floor. "Will," I said gently, my voice quieter than I intended. "We need to stop. This isn't you. Whatever is happening, it's not you." He didn't respond at first. His eyes remained fixed on the mirror, his expression unmoving. Then, slowly his lips parted, and when he spoke, his voice was flat, empty. "I've seen it, you know," he said, the words slow and deliberate. "I've seen what lies beneath. It's all there in the reflection. It's all waiting for me." I swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic in my chest. This wasn't Will talking anymore. The words were too cold, too calculated, as if they weren't his own. It was speaking through him. Elias. The ancestor wasn't just influencing him now. He had taken hold. And with every passing minute, the grip was tightening. Will's eyes flickered toward me, but there was no recognition. No trace of the man I knew. "You need to break the connection, Will," I said, my voice trembling. "You need to fight this." He blinked slowly, the blank expression never leaving his face. "Fight? It's too late for that. He's here. And now, he's a part of me." The weight of his words hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to scream, to do something, anything, to break the spell that had taken over him, but I knew that the more I tried to fight, the more I pushed, the stronger Elias's influence would become. This was no longer a simple matter of helping Will face his fears. This was a battle for his very soul. I turned away from him, pacing the room in a desperate attempt to clear my head. What was happening? What had we unleashed? The ancestor's curse was growing stronger with every session. The mirror was no longer a passive object. It was an active force, a portal drawing Will closer to its grip. And I was powerless to stop it. That's when I saw it again. The shadow in the corner of the room. For a moment, I thought it was just a trick of the light, a reflection of the candle flames flickering across the room. But as I looked closer, I saw it shift, moving just out of the corner of my vision. I spun around, my heart hammering in my chest. There, in the mirror, the figure stood again. Elias. But this time, he was different. He was stronger, more solid, more real than before, his eyes locked onto mine through the glass. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Something deep and primal. Something that told me I was no longer just dealing with a man's spirit. I was facing a force of nature, a power that had been bottled up for centuries. And now, it was ready to break free. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. No, I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't let it consume Will or me. But as much as I tried to rationalize, I knew we were running out of time. "What do you want from him?" I shouted at the mirror, my voice trembling. "Why him?" But Elias didn't answer. Instead, he simply smiled. It was the same smile I had seen the first time, but this time it was wider, more wicked. His face twisted, as if the very act of looking at him was enough to drain the life out of me. And then I saw it. The reflection of Will's face, no longer his own. His features were changing, contorting, becoming sharper, more angular. He was becoming Elias. I rushed to Will's side, shaking him roughly. "Will, fight it. You have to fight it." But he didn't respond. He was too far gone. And the worst part, he didn't even seem to want to fight anymore. His eyes fluttered open, but they were blank, devoid of any recognition. "I'm not the one who's in control anymore," Will murmured, his voice distant. "It's Elias. He's in me now." I froze. This wasn't just possession. It was something deeper, something much worse. Elias was no longer just using Will as a vessel. He had become Will. The mirror had already consumed him, and now it was consuming me too. I had to break the connection. I had to destroy the mirror. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. Someone who understood what we were dealing with. I had heard of spiritualists, exorcists, people who specialized in these kinds of curses, but I had no idea where to begin. I couldn't go to the authorities. No one would believe me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much danger I was in. How much danger Will was in. The mirror had a hold on him now, and it wasn't going to let go. In a moment of desperation, I grabbed Will's arm and tried to pull him away from the mirror, but he didn't budge. It was like the mirror itself had chained him to the glass, trapping him in a world that wasn't even his own. I looked into his eyes, empty, distant, and knew there was no going back. He was gone. The man I had worked with, the man I had helped, was lost. Elias had claimed him. And if I didn't act fast, Elias would claim me too. The room felt like it was closing in on me. The walls were narrowing, the air thickening. The whispers, distant, unintelligible at first, were growing louder. I had to destroy the mirror. I had to sever the connection before it was too late. But as I reached toward it, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, heart in my throat. Will's face twisted into a cruel smile, one that wasn't his own. "You're too late," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You've already given me what I wanted." The ground beneath me seemed to shift, and the room spun as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. I tried to move, to fight, but I was paralyzed by the sheer weight of what I was facing. Elias had won. But even as the mirror's grip tightened, I didn't know the worst part. What Elias had planned next for Will, and for me, was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I couldn't take it anymore. The mirror, Will, the curse, everything was slipping through my fingers like sand, and there was no stopping it. The man I had worked so hard to help was gone, consumed by Elias, trapped in the mirror's grip. I had no idea what I was supposed to do anymore. No idea how to stop the dark power that had taken hold of him. But I knew one thing: I couldn't give up. Will's life was still hanging in the balance, and I had to do something. I had to act, no matter how dangerous it was. I remembered the ancient texts I had studied years ago, the ones that mentioned rituals to sever spiritual connections, to break the bonds between the living and the dead. Desperation pushed me forward. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the only way to stop this nightmare was to destroy the mirror. The mirror was the source. It wasn't just a reflection, it was a prison. And as long as it existed, Elias would never truly be gone. I spent the next few hours gathering everything I could find: salt, incense, prayers, anything that might work. I had no real plan. The texts had been vague at best, their instructions incomplete. But I had no choice. I had to try. With shaky hands, I prepared the ritual. The air in the room felt thick, almost suffocating. I couldn't stop shaking. My nerves were at an all-time high. Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into a trap, and every breath felt like it could be my last. Will sat motionless in front of the mirror. He didn't react when I moved around him. It was as if he was already gone. Elias had taken full control, but I had to act. I had to save Will before it was too late. I stepped closer to the mirror, my eyes locked on the reflection of Will's face. The figure of Elias was there too, looming over him like a shadow that would never fade. It felt like the walls were closing in, suffocating me. I could feel Elias's gaze burning into the back of my head. Every part of me screamed to run, but I couldn't. I raised my hands, whispering the incantation I hoped would work. The words felt foreign, and as if they didn't belong to this world. And the more I spoke, the more I felt the mirror pull at me. The air grew colder, heavier. The very ground beneath me felt unstable. The mirror began to vibrate, faint at first, then harder, like it was alive, like it was trying to break free. I tried to push through the fear, focusing on the incantation, willing it to work. But the mirror wasn't giving in easily. It began to glow with a faint, sickly light, and I could hear a low growl coming from its depths. "Will!" I shouted, hoping to reach him. "Fight it! You have to fight him." But there was no response. The figure in the mirror was growing, twisting, expanding as if it were pulling itself out of the glass. The more I pushed, the harder the mirror fought back. It was alive, and it was angry. But as the mirror roared with fury, I realized, what if destroying it wasn't the solution? What if breaking it was exactly what Elias wanted? The mirror's grip tightened with every passing second. I could feel the weight of Elias's presence seeping through the very air, pressing against me like a vice. The mirror wasn't just a reflection anymore. It had become a living, breathing entity. And the more I fought, the stronger it grew. Will's body was still there, but it wasn't Will anymore. Elias had completely consumed him. I could see it in the way Will's face was expressionless, void of any of the warmth or life that had once defined him. His eyes, once bright and full of passion, were now dark, endless voids, staring back at me like empty windows. The power I had hoped to summon with the ritual felt like it was being sucked into the mirror, drawn into the depths of Elias's prison. I had miscalculated. In my desperation to save Will, I had opened the door wider, pulling Elias into the real world more than I ever intended. And now, there was no going back. "Will," I whispered, my voice barely audible. fight him. But there was no sign of recognition, no flicker of the will I had known. Elias wasn't just using him, he was inside him, controlling every part of him. Will was gone, and in his place, only Elias remained. I had tried everything, every ritual, every chant, every prayer I could remember. Nothing worked. Every time I thought I was making progress, the mirror fought back harder. Elias's influence grew stronger with each attempt, and I was beginning to realize something terrifying. I couldn't save Will. He was already lost. The only way to stop this, to stop Elias, was to sever the connection. But how? How could I break a bond that had lasted for centuries? How could I sever a curse that had been trapped in that mirror for so long? It wasn't until that moment that I understood the truth. I couldn't fight Elias. I couldn't fight the mirror. The only thing I could do was shut up. Silence was the key. I couldn't speak about what had happened. I couldn't share the truth of what I had seen, what I had experienced. If I did, I would be consumed by the curse just like Will had been. The mirror had already claimed him, and now it wanted me too. So I swore silence. I promised myself that I would never speak of what had happened. Not to anyone, not to Will, not to anyone I knew. It was the only way to protect myself, to protect anyone else from being dragged into this nightmare. But silence wasn't as simple as it sounded. The weight of that vow pressed down on me every day, growing heavier with each passing hour. I could feel the mirror's influence even when I wasn't near it. The pull of Elias's gaze, waiting for me to slip up. The whispers followed me wherever I went, always just out of reach, teasing me with what I couldn't say, what I couldn't share. And as I walked away from Will, from the house, from everything that had happened, I couldn't escape the thought that I had just made the worst decision of my life. Had I really saved myself by staying silent? Or had I only ensured that the curse would never let go? But even silence wasn't enough. The curse was still out there, and it wouldn't stay silent forever. Years have passed since that night. Will is still out there, still living his life in the public eye. But I know the truth that no one else knows. I can see it in his eyes sometimes if I catch a glimpse of him on the screen or in an interview. That same darkness, the same empty stare. It's there, just below the surface. He's never been the same. None of us are. And I can't escape it. I thought silence would protect me. I thought if I kept the secret, kept quiet about what I saw, that the curse would stay contained, that it would stop with Will, but it hasn't. It's still here. The mirror, its influence, it's still with me, no matter where I go, no matter how far I run. I can feel it watching me. The whispers are always just out of reach, taunting me, reminding me of what I did, what I saw, what I allowed to happen. I haven't been able to look in a reflective surface without feeling it. Every mirror, every window, every piece of glass, it doesn't matter. They all reflect the same thing. The figure in the glass, Elias. He's still there, still lurking. And even though I've never spoken about it to anyone, even though I promised I would never reveal what happened that night, I can't escape it. The curse didn't stay in the mirror. It followed me. I can feel the weight of it every time I look into a mirror. It's like the reflection is alive, reaching for me, pulling me closer. I've tried everything to shake it off. Spiritual cleansings, meditation, isolation. nothing works. The more I try to escape, the stronger it gets. It's like I'm tethered to it, like a part of me is trapped in that mirror, just like Will, just like Elias. I haven't seen Will in years, but I know, he feels it too. That emptiness, that hollow pull, it's part of him now, just like it's part of me. The curse doesn't leave, it just follows, and it never stops. I've tried to keep my distance, to leave it all behind, but I can't shake the feeling that one day, Elias will come for me. I've heard rumors, whispers from people who claim to have seen things, strange things happening around Will. In interviews, in his personal life, people say he's not the same, that there's something off about him. I've seen the way his eyes flicker when he's caught off guard, the way his smile fades too quickly, like he's trying to hide something. I know. I've seen it too many times to ignore. He's still trapped, and so am I. But the worst part, the mirror, it's still there. The reflection still haunts me. Even when I think I've gotten away, even when I think I'm free, I catch a glimpse of it, and I'm reminded we're never free. The mirror wasn't just a cursed object, it was a doorway into something darker, something we weren't meant to open. And no matter what I do, no matter how much time passes, the doorway is always open, it never fully closes. And Elias, he's still watching, still waiting. For what? I don't know. But I know it's only a matter of time before it comes for me, comes for us. And when it does, I won't be able to run anymore. The curse that was meant to stay trapped in the mirror will consume everything, and no one will be safe. The truth is, the curse never left. It followed me, followed Will, no matter where we went. The mirror was never just a reflection. It was a prison, and once it had us, it wouldn't let go. I thought silence would protect me, keep it at bay. But silence only made it stronger. Will may have moved on, but I know the truth. He's still haunted by it. I've seen the emptiness in his eyes, the flickers of Elias that never truly go away. And me, I'm not free either. Every mirror, every reflection, it's there, watching, waiting. It's only a matter of time before it comes for me again. And when it does, I won't have the strength to fight. The curse will consume us all, and no one will be safe. Not Will, not me, not anyone who dares to look into the glass.